On this episode of Narcissist Apocalypse, we talk with Saylor, and Saylor grew up witnessing the emotional abuse of her mother. It's a story of enmeshment, caretaking, getting your needs met, and resilience. Welcome to Narcissist Apocalypse, everyone. I am Brandon Chadwick, and with me today we have Saylor. How are you?
Hi, Brandon. Thanks for having me. I'm doing great. Just excited to have this time to just chat.
Well, thank you for being here. And if you want to be a guest like Saylor is today, please go to our website at narcissistapocalypse.com. Top of the page, there's a button that says guest form. When you click on that button, it takes you to our guest form page. There you can read all of our instructions and either send us an email at narcissistapocalypse@gmail.com or fill out our guest form and press the submit button. And please do send it in the format that we ask for. And today there is no content warning for this episode, and you're going to hear Saylor's story, and it is one of a child who witnessed abuse and how they handled it, how they maneuvered through it, the repercussions, and all the issues that were created. So big thank you to Saylor for being here with us today, and now I'll get out of my way and your way. Saylor, the floor is now yours.
Okay. So before I ever enter the picture, my parents met each other a few years before 99, which was the year I was born. My dad is a first-generation American to Colombian parents, and my mom is a fully Colombian citizen who had immigrated to America when my parents got married. My mom had a rough background in terms of her family, and so did my dad. So it kind of brought this great opportunity for them to get to make a life with each other, and starting from the ground up. Shortly after they got married, they had me, and then my brother, and then my sister. So I am the oldest of three kids in a Hispanic American household. And my dad was also in the military. So we had that kind of lifestyle that kind of added upon the cultures that we already had, which was being of a Latino heritage and having Catholic values. So we weren't people that went to church all the time, but those held very strong. So growing up, it did look like we didn't have any issues to the outside world. But I know that there were issues that were happening between my parents. And the earliest that I can remember them having arguments and problems was probably the earliest at age 4. And I believed that we were fine despite the issues that were happening, because there was no talk about mental health. There was no talk about what abuse looked like. There was no talk about what to do if you recognize if there's something going on that you need to get out of. We always thought of abuse as being physical, and my dad was never a physically abusive person. He was very verbal and very emotionally abusive. And to top it all off, he is an alcoholic. And so that definitely exacerbated the issues, and nothing really got better. And being the oldest, I felt like there was like an unspoken like value where we don't talk about these issues outside. We only keep them together because they are our business. It's not something anyone should know about, because no one should know that we're having these problems and that we're just fine. So I kept it at that. So I like to believe that there's a lot of internalizing of making sure that everything needed to be perfect, everything needed to be fine, and that if things weren't fine, that, I fight as much as I can for the child that I was, to defend my mom whenever whenever fights would occur, if he would disrespect her, and then things would calm down, simmer down, and then the cycle would happen again.
So what kind of things are going on as far as abuse goes during this time?
So, there was no physical abuse. That kind of took the cake in the overall abuse that I witnessed. But there were moments that he would throw things at her. He would verbally berate her. He would get very angry at her and yell at her. And sometimes she would fight back, but sometimes she would just give up. But in giving up, he would come back to instigate more and fight more. There was, to my knowledge, not so much financial abuse that it was very obvious, but I do know that it was very advantageous for my dad to not have my mom work. He was a stay-at-home mom until I was 13. He didn't like her going to the gym. He didn't like her having a job or having a sense of independence. And this is what she really wanted. I do remember that. And it was just something that she had to fight for. And luckily enough, she was able to do so when we moved back to the States because we were overseas at one point. And he, I think his hands were tied in terms of ways of living. My mom had to get a job. So I think he had to just let her get the job, even though he probably did not want to. Things usually got very overwhelmingly verbal and emotional and psychological when he would come home from work frustrated and would project that onto her or to me or my siblings.
And after witnessing all of these things, how did this affect your relationship with both of your parents? Did you try to cater to your dad? Were you caretaking your mom? What was the effect of all this specifically for you?
So with my mom and I were very close. And at the time I thought this was very normal, being very close to the point that we would call each other sisters or cousins or best friends. And I think being the oldest, having witnessed the most, I felt like this innate responsibility to take care of her emotions, looking back as a child and thinking back, my child self probably felt like the urgency to meet these needs. There was not much room for me to maybe express myself in a way that was healthy and maybe to get what I needed from my mom, who is obviously the parent in this. And despite, the enmeshed relationship that we had, it was overall the most positive compared to my dad. My dad and I definitely butt heads a lot. I really hated how disrespectful he was. And by the time I was maybe big enough and had enough vocabulary to express that he was being abusive, I would do it. I think probably the most common time that he would act out and project and be aggressive or saying something really mean was towards my mom. By I don't know, there are plenty of examples that I can't even think of right now, but I know that when he did it, it would be at the dinner table. And I would say something to the effect that's not okay. And of course, in maybe a healthy family dynamic, it's expected that someone would say, hey, that's not a really nice thing to say to someone. To hold someone accountable was almost impossible growing up. So when I did it, he would blow up at me, get very angry at me. And then my mom would interject trying to defend me. So a lot of defense, would happen, between all three of us. And I always felt like I needed to protect my mom and my siblings, against my dad whenever he would have these moments. Now, when he wasn't having these really bad moments, our relationship was pretty decent. I know that he finds it very important to meet our needs financially. So he felt, I believe that because he fulfilled these needs, there was not much else that he could grow off, from, like being emotionally, available and opening up and listening to his kids whenever they thought that he was being hurtful. So it's a really complicated relationship that I have with him. It was definitely very, very, very hard, for me to think between the lines. It was very black and white. Most of the time I thought of him as a very like he was kind of like the antagonist to the story. So I was always on guard, on edge, hyper vigilant with him.
And when it comes to the relationship with your mom, you use the word enmeshment. Can you kind of go a little bit further on, how deep that enmeshment went?
Oh, well, I guess with the enmeshment aspect, I didn't know this term until after, I graduated, undergrad, that it was very deep, to the point that surrounding adults, like, her friends or his friends or family members, or just even adults when I didn't have my parents with me, like I was in school, I would get a lot of compliments that I was very mature for my age. So think of me as 10 years old and they're like, wow, I can talk to you a lot better than I can talk to someone that's my age. And I always took it as a compliment, which probably enabled more of this normalization of a dynamic that definitely wasn't healthy. It was deep to the point that I felt like it was necessary for me to boss my siblings around and tell them what to do. And sometimes it was probably because I didn't want my parents to come home very upset if the house wasn't clean, if our rooms weren't organized, if something that wasn't done because my siblings just didn't do it, would cause us to deal with another outburst deep enough that it caused a rift between my siblings, I think, that I can think of. And not in the sense that we didn't talk to each other anymore, but it's something that I'm working on right now to repair my relationship with them, to be a sister and not some bossy, parent to them. So it's something that I'm still working on, and I'm only 24. So it was definitely entrenched in me for sure.
So to get back to the linear part of your story, growing up witnessing abuse, at the age of 6, your parents were possibly going to be splitting. So how did your parents' relationship progress and devolve from there? And how are you reacting to everything?
Yeah, so I think there were many moments, that came with the cycle of outbursts or disrespect or infidelity. That my mom was very well aware that she did not need to be in that situation. She no longer wanted to be in that situation. But of course, cycles of abuse are very complicated. That unification happens, things are fine again, and we kind of forget that there are moments of disrespect. So the first instances of this, was when I was 6 that I wrote to you about. It's one of my earliest memories of her saying to my dad, or maybe speaking to someone on the phone, ranting about this, that she wanted to leave. She wanted to leave because she was very depressed that she had 3 kids, and there was just a lot of this stuff happening. And I knew when I overheard that, okay, what 6-year-old wants to, what 6-year-old thinks this means? Well, because I had that urge of responsibility, I went to my room and started packing my things. I started packing my toys. I put them in a bag. I pulled apart my little Barbie house that I got for Christmas the previous year. Just kind of getting all my stuff ready to go because she said that she was leaving and I thought she was being serious about it. Which I know she definitely was, but obviously the delivery of wanting to leave did not happen. Then I remember her coming into my room saying that all my toys were kind of disheveled and I was, packing. And she got upset with me. She said, "What are you doing?" And I think I did try to explain to her the best that I could at 6 that, that I'm preparing to leave with her. And that kind of solidified, the aspect that I was always going to be on her side no matter what. And she didn't leave him, but I knew that I would always hear her and what she had to say, even if she didn't deliver. She didn't do it, but I would be there regardless, if she meant what she meant about leaving or not, or finding a plan to get out. I don't think I really took it personally or took it really, or devastatingly to the point that I wanted to leave or run away. But I do know that a majority of the time that I was around my family up until the point I went to college, I just kind of let it happen. I felt like I just let it happen because had I asked for them to get better, to work things out, whatever, I probably would have been dismissed or yelled at. And I think it just kind of goes back to that, that cycle of abuse where it was just very normalized that if she continuously said that she needed to leave, it was, I don't know if it was hearsay. Sometimes I took it seriously, but then when nothing happened, a few days happened, I'm like, okay, she's not leaving. It was kind of like this unofficial verification that she was not going to leave, and I was just going to move forward with my life and prepare for what would happen next. But I knew that getting older, it was to the point that he would be very aggressive even when family came to visit us. And I think I really wanted, at that point, I'm like, he needs to go, or you need to leave him, because this is causing you so much pain and this has been going on for so long. And this is not even the worst that he's done versus previous instances where he was unfaithful and you stayed. Like, there's so much that cannot be salvaged and you need to leave. And I did that for her. I think I was just so concerned about her. I don't realize now as a 24-year-old looking back to myself as 16, and I really didn't think about how it would affect me. It's just like, I just want her to be happy. I want her to be happy. Her to be happy. And not so much, I want to be at peace. And it's only after I go to college and I'm like, I need to be at peace with all of this drama, with all of the chaos, with all of the trauma that I went through. But as a child, I really, really thought about her and only her and wanting nothing but happiness for her. That's for certain. So I think I just kind of kept myself in limbo with how I felt because I was so worried about how she felt.
So at this point, you seem to be this caretaker of the household. especially of your mom's feelings. You're always concerned about how your mom is feeling, and you're not taking care of your own feelings, but also that need isn't being met by the adults in your life here either. So like a role reversal, there's this just enmeshment going on, but eventually you'll get a chance to address these things because your dad eventually does leave, which will lead to therapy. But first, tell us about your dad leaving and why he left.
He leaves, and then we're just kind of there to pick up pieces after he leaves. And it gave my mom the opportunity to gain strength and mentally realize that this relationship is not something to salvage. My dad, as I've mentioned a few times, he is an unfaithful person. Without that moral compass and my mom being that moral compass, it was very easy for him to get away with things and being unfaithful and drinking and doing things, that were at the expense of my feelings, my siblings, my mom's, so he could have fun and just feel a sense of glory because I like to think that he's like stuck within his own ways and cannot seem to figure out what is causing him to be very egotistical about all of this. So I think he felt brave enough or felt entitled to say, I really don't want to be with you anymore. And that was that. They separated and I tried to talk to him like, why did you leave? Like, we're literally here and you're there and not trying to, try to pick up the pieces and putting them together with us. And he said, I really just don't think your mom and I can continue this relationship anymore. I'll just visit for like big events like graduation, birth, like not even birthdays, like graduation, maybe holidays and stuff. But that indicated that he was gone. He didn't want to come back and take responsibility for causing that harm or trying to make things work with the family. And while he was gone, having fun, however he was living his life, all of us had to kind of pick up the pieces. My mom was definitely shattered. It was over 20 years of her life spent with my father, a whole life together, all these experiences, good and bad. Seeing her in so much pain, seeing my sister in so much pain, seeing my brother in so much pain. I was also in a lot of pain too, in the sense that like I'm really just trying to feel like a normal college student, but I feel like I'm back into this. And it's just like there's like no way out. I think we were all just kind of like we were all grieving, and my mom's parents had passed. Yeah, not like maybe a few months prior, both of them within like a month. So my mom was grieving the death of her parents and the death of her marriage, essentially, all in one. And I knew that I just needed to be there for her. And I was very grateful that I had nothing to do that summer in between my freshman year into my sophomore year, that I was just there with her. So yeah, that was definitely quite a very shell-shocking experience, but I do think in hindsight was such a blessing in disguise.
So eventually you all went to therapy together. So tell us about this.
Yeah. So I did talk to you previous about like how this period of where my parents had separated, we all collectively went to see a psychiatrist and would branch out getting like therapy separately. I did go to therapy before my parents had split, actually, but I think my mom felt like it was necessary to kind of put me to therapy because she noticed that I was probably interjecting a little bit in between the outbursts that my dad would have, or just episodes that just weren't good. But I think this instance where my parents were not together, they not together and separated and dealing with this grieving process, it really was like kind of an eye opener, at least for myself, that holy crap, this psychiatrist is telling me I have PTSD. To my understanding, it's the PTSD where it was just chronic. It was just so much stress that a person can go through in a short lifespan. At that point, I was only 18, and to think of my siblings having the same diagnosis, I was also diagnosed with panic disorder. There was a lot of times where I probably did not know how to regulate my emotions when something triggering would occur, and it would put me into a state of panic. I couldn't breathe. Sometimes I would have to try and do grounding techniques, but that wasn't even good enough at that point. Tunnel vision. My fingers would feel so flighty. But when putting the word to it by the psychiatrist, it was like, whoa, this is insane. Like, this is stuff that you see in the movies. I didn't think that this would happen to me. And this is not something that I expected to have. And I know that at the end, when we probably got like a general idea of what our diagnoses are, and what kind of medication that we were prescribed, all that jazz. Talking to my mom about it, it made her even more upset. I think because it's just accepting that, dang, all of this, all of this chaos and all of this pain is what led to this, this consequence that all of us had to deal with, disorders and have to go to therapy and have to put a lot of time to try and heal ourselves. And it was definitely a very bumpy ride in the beginning, but I do notice how much better our lives have been since my dad left. I mean, he was the main source of our stress and our triggers, but also the therapy has helped a lot for my sister. It's helped my brother and my mother too. I was on and off with therapy because college was just like wonky in terms of insurance. But I did go whenever I felt like it was absolutely necessary to. I never felt shameful to ask for therapy. I became very, very self-aware about my behaviors and my actions, very self-conscious about how the things that how I behave can affect someone negatively or positively. And with that, I learned in therapy and with my own self-reflection, mindfulness, and meditations, that the word resilience, I like to consider it as something that we should look at as a neutral term, not so much negative or positive. There's no spectrum. I like to think of it as neutral. Growing up, yes, we were aware that there was a lot of like bad things happening, but I would just hear the words like from my mom and maybe other people that kind of had an idea of what was going on. You are resilient, you're strong. There's nothing that you can't handle. All of these things. And it definitely kept me going. Having resilience has been very, very helpful in the sense that it helped me overcome a lot of adversity, that I am a very healthy person now. But I am in a point where I'm trying to get my master's degree in social work. I'm at the point where I want to help other people, their concerns with their mental health and how systemically that's affected so many people in our society. Utilizing resilience can be utilizing the idea of resilience can be bad because it's almost destructive. It really pushes us away from doing the work that can help someone have a calm nervous system. just constantly, well, that child is resilient, good for them. They're not going to deal with, these issues with drugs, or they're not going to put themselves into impulsive situations. And there's a lot of generalizations of that, and well, at least that child is strong. No child should ever be expected to be strong. A child should be raised in a healthy environment by healthy parents or healthy caregivers. Resilience is only a coping mechanism, I think. It's a very complicated version of a coping mechanism in my eyes. And to think all these little kids that I'm working with right now saying well, they're very resilient, at least they can deal with it. No, I don't want that to enable me into thinking, well, it's just fine, I can move on to the next. No, I'm dedicating my time to help them learn the skills to help calm their nervous system, helping them emotionally regulate, helping them not have to deal with stress to the point that it's toxic. Because putting a person in very toxic situations and knowing that they're resilient is just going to make them more sick, not just mentally, but also physically, also socially. There's a lot of aspects that if your mental health is not well, it affects every aspect of your health. And I stress this so much to people that do say, well, at least they're really strong. I don't know what I would have done if I'm well, that's totally fine. Those are very separate things. But it's really just a matter of holding people accountable and having these conversations that are vulnerable, so that it could help us raise, the upcoming generations to be better people. I first heard the phrase resilience is not something you want to glorify or romanticize in children. When I was, I think, a junior in college, and that really shifted how I perceived my own experiences and how I tried to heal now, as well as other people that are potentially going through the same things, or if not other forms of adversity that are that they're just trying to figure out how to, tackle through. I think one more thing I do want to discuss is the fact that I am probably the healthiest that I've ever been in all facets of my life. And I couldn't be more grateful for the things that have put me in this position. I am grateful that despite everything that happened to me, that there was, that there was money that could help us, live in a home, put clothes on my back, feed me. My needs were met in many aspects. But there were other things like, the emotional and the psychological aspects that were not really met that I'm working on now. But I know that I and other people that I am close with that have gone through similar experiences can serve as an example of the fact that there is hope, even though there are moments where it feels like absolutely not. Nothing feels like things can get better from here, but they do. I think with everything that I experienced in growing up as a young adult, trying to put together a lifestyle that was calm and not chaotic was it's absolutely difficult. I still experience moments where I'm triggered. Sometimes I have outbursts. Sometimes I have panic attacks. But it really is a matter of how I have those moments to the point that it doesn't hurt other people. Hurt people. My dad is a very hurt person. He hurt me. He hurt my siblings. He hurt my mom, and has hurt so many other people. And he doesn't recognize that what he is doing is hurtful, and he continues to hurt. My mom and I are in agreement that we can have our moments that are valid, that if we have that's a situation that does not look good on that person, I'm going to validate that those experiences are because I grew up literally experiencing and witnessing domestic violence, but that does not give me the right to hurt other people. And that has given me so much peace that I'm a highly accountable person and a highly responsible person. And I think it helped to communicate my needs, to practice these things that I haven't been able to do when I was a kid. But like most importantly, that it's very possible to reach this space where I can have healthy relationships with other people and know who is accepted in my circle of people that I want to have around me to support me whenever I am not strong at some point. Because I'm human, I'm not perfect.
And to your fellow children of domestic violence, and to the parents who are enduring domestic violence, what do you have to say to them before we leave today?
To the little kids, I guess, maybe to the kids now and to the adults that were those kids. We probably know this, but if you don't, what is happening is not your fault. If you're feeling upset that you're not getting the attention from your parents that you need, or not getting something that you need from your parents, it's not your fault. You deserve better. And if you don't know that, I'm going to say it again. You deserve better. And I wish nothing but constant self-esteem, empowerment, in regards to that. To the parents, I guess I'm a very compassionate person. I know a lot of people have different ways to encounter this kind of experience. The situation is a lot more complicated than people on the outside don't really think of it, especially if they have never experienced it. It's normal to feel guilty. It's normal to feel shameful. And it's highly recommended that if you feel comfortable enough to do so, that you talk to your kids about this. Ask them how they felt about this entire situation that you guys went through or are going through, what their opinions are, what their needs, what needs they're lacking. Obviously, don't do it all in one go, but little by little, ask these questions that are really hard to ask and see how they feel. And then from there, you can come up with a plan and onward in what decision you ever decide to make. I respect it. I know that we all want to think like, once someone disrespects you, it's over, I'm leaving. But obviously it's not that easy, and that I give a lot of passion for. So, and I think that's the best way that I could put an end to that.
Well, Saylor, I really want to thank you for being our guest today, sharing your story, sharing your perspective and your experience of what it's like to be a child in these relationships, and, you know, seeing your point of view and listening to you today. I know it's going to help a lot of people and help maneuver people. It might not be today or tomorrow, but, you know, your words today, I know, are going to help so many people, you know, start to give them movement. And that is what is important. So a really big thank you for being here today with us, today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure to come in.
Well, thank you once again for being here with us today. And for everyone out there who is listening and you want to help our show, we have a survey that we would like you to take so we can get to know you better. And you have been hearing advertising on our show, but we want to be able to get the best advertisers for you, people that actually have things that you need, how we can help survivors. We want to get really the perfect fit for advertising. So we're leaving a link in our show notes if you want to help us out by filling out our survey. It would help us out a lot by doing so. So thank you in advance for doing that. And if you want to be a guest on our show, please do go to our website at narcissistapocalypse.com. Top of the page, there's a button that says guest form. When you click on that button, it takes you to our guest form page. There you can read all of our instructions and either send us an email at narcissistapocalypse@gmail.com or fill out our guest form and press the submit button. And please do send it in the format that we ask for. And if you are someone that needs support, we at narcissistapocalypse.com have a support group. So at narcissistapocalypse.com, top of the page, you'll see a support group button. And when you click on that button, it takes you to our very own safe social network. And inside, you'll see that we have Zoom meetings every Wednesday night, Thursday afternoons, and Saturday nights. We also have forum boards for you to post on to get the validation that you need from survivors just like you. And you can validate other survivors just like you as well by posting and validating their needs on their posts. So it's a wonderful group of people on there. You can share your experiences and make friends as well. It's a great group of people in our support group. So if you need support, join our support group today. And if you need even more support, please do visit our friends at domesticshelters.org. At domesticshelters.org, they have articles and resources to help you make sense of what you are dealing with. They have every phone number and email address and every web address for shelters and agencies, no matter how big or small the town you're in. Domesticshelters.org has it there. It is a wonderful free resource and a wonderful organization. So if you need extra support, please do go to domesticshelters.org. And we here at Narcissist Apocalypse have a new friend to the show, and it is an organization called Shelter Movers, which you can reach at sheltermovers.com. And Shelter Movers helps survivors of domestic violence transition to a better and safer life. And they are currently just a Canadian company, but they're looking to be spreading into the United States. It's a volunteer organization and a donor-supported charitable organization as well. And what they do is they help coordinate moves for people who are getting out of domestic violence. And it's an interesting part of the domestic violence escape process. And they help get you to safety by getting things out of your home and setting things up into storage. All of your belongings are put in storage, and they can even do this for your pets and livestock as well. It's a wonderful organization. So if you need help from them or you just want to donate to them, please go to sheltermovers.com and check them out. And that is it for today's show. So for myself and Saylor, we hope you have a good night.